All right, Goa Minister is now making a U-turn on his LGBT remark. Goa Minister was misquoted is what he says. I was talking about drug addicts, not LGBT community. And he's now joining us on the phone line as well, sir. First of all, are you also going to apologize for that comment, even if perhaps it was misquoted, as you say, because it has hurt a certain section of the society?
हेलो, हाँ, एक बात मैं मिसकोट करने का मैंने वो जो कुछ बोला है वो मिसकम्युनिकेशन हुआ है। मैंने अब जो जिस रिपोर्टर में जो प्रश्न पूछा था मुझे ड्रग एडिक्ट्स के बारे में, मैंने तो सेंटर और मेडिसिन की बात की, वो तो ड्रग एडिक्ट के बारे में, कि LGBT के बारे में मैं कुछ भी नहीं कहा है। उसका सेंटर और उसके मेडिसिन के बारे में मैं कोई बात ही बोल नहीं सकता कि उसमें सबके पॉलिसी में इतना ही कहा है। उसका एक अच्छा सम्मान देने के बारे में हम आगे चलकर योजना बनाएंगे, इतना ही वो बोला है। यानी मिसकोट करने का मुद्दा ही नहीं आता है।
Mr. Tawadkar, it's very clear that the reporter there asked you specifically about the LGBT community and not drug addicts. So how are you saying you were quoted out of context?
हेलो, सुनिए, मैंने इतना ही बोला था कि जो गोवा के यूथ कम्युनिटी हैं जो ड्रग एडिक्ट्स में हैं, उनके लिए गोवा में 2 सेंटर हैं और जरूरत पड़े तो और सेंटर खुल के उनके काउंसलिंग और उनका ट्रीटमेंट देके उनका मेडिसिन भी हम देना चाहिए। इतना ही वो बोला था। LGBT के बारे में मैं कुछ भी नहीं कहा।
But sir, the question asked by the reporter was specifically about the LGBT community and he repeatedly asked you that question.
एक ही बराबर उसने 2 प्रश्न पूछे थे और ड्रग एडिक्ट मैंने उनके बात की थी कि ड्रग एडिक्ट और सेक्सुअल एब्यूज के बारे में मैंने बोला था कि LGBT के बारे में कुछ भी नहीं मैंने बोला।
Sir, you are saying you have been misquoted, but as I told you earlier, a certain section of the community has been hurt by the comments, even if they misread it. Will you apologize for it at least?
कुछ भी नहीं बोला ना, उसके LGBT के बारे में मैंने कुछ भी नहीं बोला। हर्ट होने का मुद्दा ही नहीं, वो आपके किसी रिपोर्टर ने उसका मिसकोटेड किया है।
So from what it appears is that you were confused between the LGBT community and drug addicts, or were you trying to say that a large section of the LGBT community is addicted to drugs?
हेलो, मैंने सिर्फ इतना ही बोला, ड्रग एडिक्ट जो यूथ है उनको उनके लिए एक सेंटर बना के उनको ट्रीटमेंट देके मेडिसिन का भी के बारे में सोचेंगे, इतना ही बोला। LGBT के बारे में मैंने कुछ भी नहीं कहा।
मिस्टर तावड़कर, आपसे जो रिपोर्टर ने सवाल पूछा था उसने स्पेसिफिकली LGBT कम्युनिटी के बारे में पूछा 3 दफे और आपने एक ही जवाब दिया कि उनके लिए सेंटर बनेगा।
मैंने स्पेसिफिक उनके बोला ड्रग एडिक्ट के लिए सेंटर खोल देंगे।
तो आप ये बात कह रहे हैं कि आपने कंफ्यूज किया ड्रग एडिक्ट्स और LGBT के बीच में?
या
ये
मैंने कंफ्यूज नहीं किया, मैं इतना स्पेसिफिक बोला था ड्रग एडिक्ट के लिए मैं ये सर के यूथ हैं उनके ट्रीटमेंट के लिए सेंटर खोल देंगे और उनका मेडिसिन और उनका ट्रीटमेंट के बारे में सोच लेंगे।
मिस्टर रमेश, बहुत लोगों का ऐसा मानना है कि आप सिंपली एम्बैरेस्ड है इसलिए यू टर्न ले रहे हैं।
मैं यू टर्न नहीं ले रहा हूँ, मैंने कुछ नहीं बोला तो वो क्या करेंगे कि आप लोग इसका आप जिस तरह से अपनी तरह से गलत अर्थ निकाल रहे हैं।
All right, Ramesh Tawadkar there insisting that he was misquoted despite the fact, and you clearly heard it there, the reporter repeatedly asked him about the LGBT community, to which he had replied saying that there would be centers built for them to make them normal. Let's listen in once again to what the questions were, what his reply was, because now he says that he never ever mentioned the LGBT community at all.
Goa Sports and Youth Affairs Minister Ramesh Tawadkar's statement has created a lot of controversy. Joining me now is LGBT activist and chairperson of the Humsafar Trust, Mr. Ashok Ravkavi. Ashok ji, want to know your first comments on the statements that have come in.
The first comments is I didn't believe it that this was real news. Okay, because no, I didn't think a minister would be so stupid as to make such statements. Even after the Delhi High Court judgment has said that it is not an illness. You know, the Delhi High Court judgment had clearly talked about SOGI, which is called sexual orientation and gender identity rights. Now, ministers like this who are not informed, who don't know what they're talking about, shouldn't be making serious statements like this, especially since LGBT youth are 20 times more liable to commit suicide than among the general population, youth in the general population. So, with this as background, I condemn this sort of statement. Now, the second, to get down to brass tacks, what does he mean by medicine? I would like to have a list of medicine that he is suggesting. So if I get the list, I can then take him to court under malpractices.
But do you think these type of statements coming in from a senior politician, a minister like these, also affect the general perception about the LGBT community?
Very good. You know, you're so right. The fact is that these type of statements coming out from responsible members of our political class, they have an effect on the whole of society. It's a regressive attitude.
Are you going to demand any action against the minister for this statement?
I would like to demand definitely action against this minister. I want him to apologize to the community.
Anjali Gopalan of the NAS Foundation is now on the phone line with us. Ms. Gopalan, the sports minister now makes a U-turn. He says that he never mentioned the LGBT community, but he was talking about drug addicts. Do you think it's simply because of the kind of outrage that he's seen from across the society?
Of course, I'm sure it is, and I'm sure he realized he just shot his mouth off without realizing what he's talking. This kind of nonsense, I think people like this really need to be questioned. First of all, I don't think they should be even in positions of power. He should have nothing to do with the youth. He's such a regressive man. I mean, which world is he living in? This is absolutely ridiculous that he said what he said, and he's lying if he says he didn't say it because he's on tape saying it. So how can he backtrack and say that he didn't say it? Are these people out of their heads? I can't understand what's wrong with them. And in this day and age, I mean, which world is this man living in?
Ms. Gopalan, also there are a lot of misconceptions about the LGBT community, and do ministers or people in responsible positions, when they make statements such as these, do they only aggravate those sort of misconceptions?
Of course they do aggravate it, and of course they need to apologize, and of course they need to educate themselves. Our problem is that we are absolutely surrounded by incompetent, uneducated people who just come into positions of power not because of any kind of hunar in them, but because they're there for every other reason except the right one. Now, my point is that this man needs to actually deliver a public apology to the community. Nothing less is acceptable from him.
Anjali Gopalan, many thanks for speaking with Headlines today over that issue. Anjali Gopalan sticks to the fact that the minister should apologize because now he's taking a U-turn, saying that he never mentioned the LGBT community but was rather talking about drug addicts. However, from his older soundbite, it is very clear that the reporter was questioning him about the LGBT community repeatedly, and the minister went on giving the same reply 3 times over. Vidya is now joining us with more details. Vidya, there's been outrage across the society over this statement, but now the minister is making a U-turn.
Well, it certainly comes as a shock, just what everyone in the LGBT community and all across the entire country, everyone had heard the minister say what he did. So certainly most of the people that I've spoken to from the LGBT community were extremely shocked at what he had said, and they had wanted to, they were already preparing to lodge a protest. At this moment, when now he's making a U-turn, the community people say that they would still want to go ahead and meet him in Goa, so that to make him understand what he really meant about curing and that it being a disease would really, they really want to see whether he really holds that perception or not.
All right, Vidya, many thanks for joining us with those details and a perspective of what the LGBT community thinks about this whole issue.